They say every day is for the thief, one day for the owner of the house. But ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, has reversed the role. It is now every day for the owner of the house. If you're involved in bribery, over-invoicing, or any shady deal, the day of reckoning has come. ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, is watching you. If you're reported for any corrupt practice, you'll be investigated, prosecuted, and punished. Corruption is harmful to our nation. Join the campaign against it by reporting any corrupt practice to ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission.
Let we join hands with ICPC, make them better.
Let's make Nigeria great again.
ICPC, they watch you.
And for corruption.
Break the chain of corruption now. Don't give, don't take. This message is brought to you by ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission.
In every country where corruption thrives, its effects are usually devastating. A few individuals unjustly enrich themselves at the expense of the vast majority, thereby giving rise to poverty and underdevelopment. It also breeds disregard for the rule of law, thereby fostering political instability, social inequality, reduction in both the level of productivity and quality of goods and services, as well as low foreign direct investments, bad international image, amongst others. To rescue the country from the grip of corruption, ICPC was established and vested with the power to investigate and prosecute offenders as part of its mandate. Today on the program, we bring you highlights of some of the cases the Commission has successfully prosecuted in recent times. To rescue the country from the grip of corruption, ICPC was established and vested with the power to investigate and prosecute offenders as part of its mandate. Today on the program, we bring you highlights of some of these cases the Commission has successfully prosecuted in recent times. I am Ruth Awudi. Stay tuned for these and more. Welcome to Corruption Must Go.
Let we join hands with ICPC, make them better.
Let's make Nigeria great again.
ICPC, they watch you.
And for corruption.
Break the chain of corruption now. Don't give, don't take. This message is brought to you by ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission.
Corruption not in my country.
Welcome to Studio Airlines.
Oh, thank you. Please, we need ticket to Abuja. Yes.
Oh, so sorry, sir. The seats are fully booked.
Hello, ladies.
Good day, ma'am.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Please, I need a ticket to Abuja.
Oh, sure.
40,000, man. Okay. Here.
Excuse me. Abuja.
Yes.
But you people told us that tickets are finished.
Finished. Abi?
When you asked for tickets, there was no ticket.
Exactly.
So this is what you people do. You hoard tickets and use them for your private business. This is the same reason why when we get into the flight, half of the seats are empty.
Oga, you can call Minister of Aviation.
Excuse me? So this is what you do? You hoard tickets for your PP? This is corruption and
Not in my country.
Stop corruption now.
Corruption not in my country.
This is Corruption Must Go, ICPC's weekly television program. Hawa Garba brings us details of some convictions secured by ICPC recently.
Welcome to this segment. I am Hawa Garba. ICPC has secured 12 years jail time for both Dr. Sahad Alanamo, a former chairman of the Governing Council of Kwara State Polytechnic Ilorin, and Salman Sulaiman, the chief executive director of Namilas Nigeria Limited, for collecting and giving a bribe respectively. The convicts had earlier been arraigned before Honorable Justice Mahmoud Abdul Ghaffar of Kwara State High Court 9, sitting in Ilorin, on an 8-count charge for bribery. The offences contravene sections 8 to 22 and punishable under the same sections of the Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Act 2000 respectively. Dr. Alanamu, who had been nominated into the board of ICPC in 2017, but was later dropped on an allegation of corruption which the commission was investigating, was charged for collecting 5 million naira bribe from a contractor friend of his as kickback for the award of a contract. Suleiman, on the other hand, was accused of bribing a government official when he paid the said sum of money into Alanamu's Guaranty Trust bank account as a reward for the award of contract to his company. Counsel to ICPC had averred that Namilas Nigeria Limited had submitted falsified and doctored documents during the bidding process. The court was also informed of how Alanamu ensured that the contract for the construction and furnishing of an auditorium in Kwara State Polytechnic at a cost of over 180 million naira was awarded to a company belonging to his friend, when it was not qualified to execute the contract. The prosecution, having established very strong evidence of collusion, bid rigging and corrupt practices against the accused, urged the court to mete out appropriate sanctions to them. Having considered the totality of evidence adduced by the prosecution in the course of the trial, and recognizing that it had discharged the burden of proof placed upon it by law beyond reasonable doubt, the trial judge in his ruling found Dr. Alanamu guilty and sentenced him to 7 years imprisonment on counts 2 and 3 and 5 years with hard labor on counts 1, 4 and 5. He was also ordered to pay the sum of 25 million naira pursuant to Section 20 of the ICPC law, which states, without prejudice to any sentence of imprisonment imposed under this act, a public officer or other person found guilty of soliciting, offering or receiving gratification shall fulfill the gratification and pay a fine of not less than 5 times the sum of the value of the gratification which is the subject matter of the offense. Justice Abdul Ghaffar further found Suleiman guilty on counts 5 and 6 and sentenced him to 5 and 7 years imprisonment respectively. The third defendant, which is the company, was ordered to pay a fine of 1 million naira. All the sentences are to run concurrently. ICPC secured a 7-year jail term against Professor Richard Akindele, a former lecturer at the Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, Osun State, for demanding sex in exchange for marks from Ms. Monica Osagi, a female postgraduate student. Justice Maureen A. Oyetenu of the Federal High Court sitting in Osogbo, Osun State, delivered judgment against Professor Akindele after she had been convinced that he committed the offense. Before the judgment, ICPC had arraigned Professor Akindele on a 4-count charge bordering on abuse of office at the court for committing the offense in September 2017 when he was still a lecturer at the institution. The first count charge against the ex-lecturer stated that he corruptly demanded for sexual benefits for himself from Ms. Osagi, who was then a postgraduate student, with the promise to upgrade her marks from fail to pass, thereby committing an offense contrary to and punishable under sections 8, subsection 1A and 2 of the Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Act 2000. The second charge stated that Professor Akindele allegedly solicited for sexual benefit for himself from the victim for a favor to be done to her, thereby committing an offense contrary to and punishable under section 18, subsection B of the Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Act 2000. The third charge against the ex-lecturer was for concealing evidence intentionally by removing some parts of the WhatsApp conversation between him and the victim, thereby committing an offense contrary to section 15, 1-2 of the Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Act 2000. The fourth charge stated that during investigation by ICPC, Professor Akindele claimed that he was born in April 1961, while the record in his personal file obtained from OAU revealed that he was born in April 1959, thereby falsifying his age, an offense contrary to section 25 of the Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Act 2000. In the course of the trial, Mr. Ebenezer Shogunle, counsel to ICPC, presented the phones of the victim and suspect as exhibits. He said the phones were collected during investigation by ICPC and they contained evidences of what transpired between the suspect and the victim. He urged the judge to authorize the release of the victim's phone to her, while the suspect phone should be confiscated due to the explicit nature of the evidence on it. Justice Oyetenu obliged the release of the victim's phone, while the evidence on Professor Akindele's phone was viewed privately by the judge based on the advice of the ICPC counsel. Professor Akindele then pleaded guilty to all the charges against him, probably to sway the sympathy of the court, which could earn him a lesser sentence. In line with this, counsel to the defendant, Mr. Francis Omotosho, urged the judge to be lenient with his client because before then he had already spent 1 month in prison custody. Thereafter, the judge sentenced the ex-lecturer to 2 years each on 3 counts of the charge and 1 year on the last count. The sentences are to run concurrently. ICPC has secured the conviction of one Mr. Dandaura Joshua, a staff of the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, NSCDC, for bribery and employment scam. Mr. Joshua had earlier been dragged before Honorable Justice Uthman A. Musa of FCT High Court 13, sitting in Buhari, Abuja, on a 4-count charge of conferment of corrupt advantage upon self and cheating. His offense was contrary to and punishable under Section 19 of the Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Act 2000 and Section 323 of the Penal Code Cap 532 Laws of the Federal Capital Territory 2006. The court was told of how the convict received the sum of 200,000 naira from one Dr. Emmanuel Osuore with the promise to secure him employment with NSCDC. The said money was received in 2 tranches of 100,000 naira each through his EcoBank account. In January 2017, when he was first arraigned, he had entered a not guilty plea when all the charges were read to him. However, when the trial began, Mr. Joshua approached the court with a request to change his plea to guilty, which was granted. A Lagos High Court sitting at Igboshere has sentenced a woman, Mrs. Philomena Unwanore, to 22 years in prison for falsification of documents. The convict was arraigned alongside Mrs. Adeline Ifeyiwa Eke Alu by ICPC on a 5-count charge of conspiracy and submission of falsified traveling documents to the India High Commission, contrary to Section 22(1)(c) and punishable under Section 17(1)(c), Section 26(1)(a) and punishable under Section 13 of the Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Act 2000. The court, presided over by Justice Lawal Akapo, found Mrs. Eke Alu not guilty as it was its view that she was also a victim of the convict. Alu was consequently discharged and acquitted. The judge, on the other hand, found Mrs. Unwanore guilty on all the counts, but requested to know from ICPC prosecutors, Mr. Kabir Elelu and Mrs. Yvonne William Mbata, as to whether she had any previous record of conviction. Responding, the prosecution team cleared her of any previous wrongdoing, prompting the convict's counsel, Mr. Chris Obiaka, to request the court to temper justice with mercy considering the health condition of his client, which was why she needed to travel to India. The judge then sentenced Mrs. Unwanore on each of 4 counts to 5 years imprisonment and 2 years on the 5th count, noting that punishments are given to ensure that Nigeria is a country with law-abiding citizens. The sentences are to run concurrently. Corruption Must Go continues with roots. Stay with us.
Make we join hands with ICPC, make them better.
Let's make Nigeria great again.
ICPC, they want you.
One hand for corruption.
Break the chain of corruption now. Don't give, don't take. This This message is brought to you by ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission.
With us in the studio is Barrister Golden Iwago from the Commission's Legal Department. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Sir, what do you make of all these convictions?
Well, I would start by saying that these convictions, as being one of the reasons the Commission is there in the fight against corruption. Firstly, it will go to restore the confidence of the Nigerian people in the things of government, in the affairs of the system. And again, if you look at some of the convictions you have reeled out, you will also find that it will go to clean, the already battered image of the country.
That's right.
Now, starting from the rear, the case of Philomena Wanuro, has to do with visa scam. So she was convicted and sentenced for falsifying documents.
Yes.
Now, this is one area where Nigerians apply for visa to, embassies and high commissions in Nigeria, and sometimes it will take months, and people are denied. So I think this conviction will go to restore confidence, in some of these embassies, that it's no longer business as usual.
Yes.
And then for some of those Nigerians who will go to apply for visa and attach false documents, they will now know that no, the Christmas party is over.
Yes.
Now look at the other case of Dr. Alanamo, who was chairman of governing council of a polytechnic in Kwara State, awarded a contract. That goes to deal with the entire procurement process. Now the confidence of the Nigerian people is restored that, when government says a contract is worth, 1 million naira, 1 billion naira, it is actually worth that amount. Because in Dr. Alanamo's case, he awarded the contract to his friend and then collected a kickback of 5 million naira. The interesting thing in his conviction was that the court invoked Section 20 of the Act. And that section, the essence is that if you are convicted for any offenses from Sections 1 to 19, that's bordering on gratification, bribe, and all that.
Yes.
That the court is empowered to give a fine 5 times higher than the amount, of gratification. So in his case, he took 5 million naira, and when he was convicted and sent to prison, the court gave a fine of 25 million naira. Now, how does that restore confidence in the procurement process? You will now find that those civil servants, public servants, contractors, because even the contractor in that case, his friend was also convicted. The company was fined 1 million naira. So people will now know that if you go take any bribe, it could be in the next 5 years when you are convicted. Of course, then you would have spent all that money. You will pay back. Now, again, one of the other convictions mentioned there has to do with employment scam, which is a very rampant thing in our system now. And then unemployed graduates are daily scammed by people, even public servants,
Yes.
Collecting money. So in that case, you will discover that Mr. Joshua, who took money to give someone a job, was convicted because he had no such powers, he has no such authority. So when people hear that, there are employment opportunities now, they will know that truly they are dealing with the right sources. And those who are in that line of business would also caution themselves
Yes.
that it's no longer business as usual. So the commission is doing well, and what one would say at this point is that the commission should continue with the end result that the Nigerian public will have interest restored in the affairs of government, and then the international community will also have that confidence that yes, the government is doing something, because it becomes bad where that perception that the government is not doing anything is there. But with convictions in this line, people are beginning to have that confidence that government is actually doing something very serious. Right. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us in the studio today.
Thank you.
All these convictions not only serve to highlight the consequences that await people who engage in acts of corruption in whatever form, but are also a reminder that there is always a day of reckoning for wrongdoers. ICPC remains resolute in its effort to bring perpetrators of corrupt acts to book and to rid Nigeria of the menace. A Nigeria free from all forms of corruption is still possible if we join in the anti-corruption fight and steer clear of all forms of corrupt practices. The fight against corruption begins with you. Remember, you can follow us on our social media platforms as shown on the screen. Thank you for watching. See you again next week. Bye for now.